Unconventional Life, welcome back to the summit. This is your host, Jules Schroeder. I've got Taryn Southern in the house from Venice, California. Taryn, are you ready to take us down the path less traveled?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Taryn is an internet personality whose videos have received more than 500,000 subscribers and 700 million views online, which is crazy. She's also a singer. She's, I guess, a YouTuber is how you might call it, and recently launched the Tribe of Good, which is a social impact VR production company focused on interactive storytelling for good. And I know you've done a lot of digital media consulting. You're a columnist. I know you're enthusiastic about a lot of things, including cats.
Very enthusiastic about that.
And you're also one of the contributing authors for 3 Billion Under 30. So, Taryn, welcome to the summit. Fill in the gaps we might have left out and give us a glimpse into your personal life.
Starting from where?
Whatever feels lively and exciting.
Lively and exciting. I mean, every day is exciting, I suppose, given that I have a pretty unconventional career. I've had an unconventional career since I graduated from college. So it's just been, it really has been a very interesting journey. I did take a quote unquote regular 9-to-5 job right out of college, but I only lasted 2 months. So clearly that was not for me. I moved to LA and decided, why not pursue entertainment? It had always been a passion of mine. And I thought I would regret it if I didn't at least give it a shot. And so I went for it. And over the course of the last 10 years, I've had a number of different jobs in the entertainment industry, different areas of storytelling, television hosting, acting, writing, producing. And of course, there was this massive shift that happened towards the beginning of all this, which was the dawn of internet content, which changed everything for storytellers and made it possible for people to become entrepreneurs as entertainers. And so I think now I see myself just as interested and engaged with the business side of what I do as I am the creative side. So like you said, I do a lot of consulting for brands and businesses and advise companies on digital media strategies. And that's also just a lot of fun for me. So
yeah. Nice. So when most people think about YouTubers that you've encountered or people that might be listening to it, like what exactly is it and what exactly is it not? You know?
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd be curious on your take on that.
What is it? So I guess anyone could call themselves a YouTuber if they've uploaded a video onto YouTube. There's probably most of us. I think YouTuber is an identifier that content creators go by to say that they are making a living online, or that their primary job is that of a content creator. And YouTube, being the behemoth that they are, it's the platform of choice for all of these content creators. Although Facebook, they're catching up. But I would say that being a YouTuber usually entails creating regular content on a consistent basis. Whether that's once a week, twice a week, now for many content creators, 5-6 times a week. And that content might be music videos, it might be sketches, it might be vlogs, it might be fashion, in whatever genre they've chosen as their area of focus. And then what it is not is, it does not mean, just because you're a YouTuber, it does not mean you're a filmmaker. It does not mean you're an actor. It does not mean you're a singer. It doesn't denote really any type of specific creative field other than just you use YouTube as a primary platform through which to communicate with your audience.
Yeah, nice. So if we were to go back in time a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit more about the YouTube stuff, content creative stuff a little bit later, but if we were to be a fly on the wall to who was Taryn growing up in middle school or high school, like what kind of girl was she? What would we see?
I was pretty, I changed a lot before high school. I was pretty shy as a kid and I loved to read. I really stuck to myself and pretty independent, just did my own thing, loved arts and crafts, and always had 5 books in my hands. And then towards the end of middle school, I booked my first play, and that was where everything shifted for me. I became a lot more extroverted. I was now working with other kids, putting together plays and musicals. And so that changed, I think, a lot of my ambitions and even my sort of sense of identity. But yeah, I'd say in high school I was more lively, someone that probably attempted to hang out with everyone. I'd like to say that I, was friends with everyone. I'm sure that maybe there was an identifier to me that I'm not aware of. Maybe I was just like the theater geek, but tended to be friends with a lot of different people, and that's still kind of how I like to live my life.
Yeah.
Unique people around me.
Yeah, nice. Your parents, for example, like knowing what you do now, would they have said looking back in time, like, oh yeah, I could definitely see her doing that? Or does it kind of seem like a new thing?
I think aspects of what I do, they would have said, yeah, we could totally see Taryn doing that. I mean, I think I was doing a lot more acting when I first moved to LA, so that was not a surprise to them. I think some of the more raunchy comedy stuff that I've done, that I've produced and written, came to a surprise to them. The people that know me really well in real life, I love that kind of humor, but it's not something that would be obvious immediately.
Yeah, nice. So I know you went to college, like you said in the introduction, you had this traditional 9 to 5. So how was it for you finding your own voice inside of this like grand society that we live in? Because often there's this pressure, go to school, get a job, be put in one of these paths, and you do live this unconventional life. And so how were you able to navigate some of that pressure and ultimately find your voice as Taryn, in those earlier college post years?
I'm still finding my voice. I think we never stop finding our voices. And those voices change and evolve with time as we get older and our tastes change. But for me, I always felt that there was something different out there for me than I watched my parents, who are lovely people, hold down jobs at the same company my mom still is in the same job that she's been in for 30 some years. And kind of buy into a system that, made sense for them at that time, but just I could not grasp the logic of it. Like, okay, great. You take a job at a well-established company in hopes that you will sort of slowly climb the ladder. You'll have security. You'll save all your money for when you retire. And through that time, you're just going to kind of grit your teeth and bear it. It may not always be fun or interesting, or maybe most of the time it's not fun or interesting, but it's a system that works, and it's steady. And it's like all of these things I just didn't care about. Like, I was like, but I want to have fun. And I don't understand this whole deferred life happiness thing. It doesn't make sense to me. What about happiness now? And what about freedom and flexibility? Does that matter to you? And so the structure of that system just never appealed to me. And I always was looking outside of that. It was just coming out of college, I didn't even know what I would create for myself and what that would look like. And I just fortunately just kept iterating and iterating and iterating. And ultimately I've now been in LA for 10 years. And it was like each year it was like, am I actually doing this? Am I making a living? Am I staying? And it was just hitting those benchmarks every year and being like, okay, I can do this. Yeah. Now I have no idea what I would, if I had to get a job, I don't know what I would do. I have no idea how I would even think about that. I think it would be pretty difficult. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with getting a job. And now we have all these companies that are thinking differently and treating their employees differently. And there's a whole different sort of, I think, startup work environment that didn't exist when I just got out of college. But yeah, I just pressed myself to look beyond what was existing and try to find interesting ways to create opportunity for myself.
Yeah. So I find it interesting, like you said, you moved to LA to go be an actress or to do acting. And, a lot of people hearing this, it's like that famous dream that you hear of people move to LA or they try to become a rock star or try to become this, and it's seemingly impossible for some people. And how were you mentally able to just stay like focused and clear and committed? Like, this is what I want to be doing, whether it was acting or you kept iterating, but you knew you wanted to stay in LA. How were you able to do that? And what advice might you give to someone that has a similar crazy kind of idea by society standards, at least?
Yeah. So 2 types of people do really well in LA, and maybe more, but I'll give you the 2 generic people. One is the person who believes beyond all doubt that they are destined for stardom, that they are great, that they are talented, and the world deserves to see and hear their talents. And it's just a tragedy if the world does not. And these people can go years and years and years without wins and still stay in that mindset. It's amazing. I'm not that person. I've never been that person. I've always been a doubter, like always been more on the high anxiety side, where I tend to I don't want to say I'm a cynic, not that I'm not a glass half full, but I would say if I look back on my early 20s specifically, I certainly had more doubts than the average person in LA, and was very analytical about how I went about doing things, because I felt the risk was too large.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to just feel like I was spinning my wheels for several years and not getting anywhere. I wanted to see real progress and have a way of doing that. And so I'd say the second category of people in LA are those people who are analytical, who, and when I say LA, I guess any kind of dreamer situation, people who can create a system that works for them, some sort of game where they can, I guess, analyze the small wins that come their way so that they know that they're on the right path. For me, if I had just been losing the entire time, I would have probably seen that as a sign that I need to do something different.
Yeah, totally.
And maybe that's not a great piece of advice for some people, because I have heard of singers and actors who did, had 100 auditions before they booked their first one. I think that story is more rare than it is common. I think the hardest part in a city like this is getting your foot in the door. But if you're really good, it's hard not to get small wins.
Yeah. Like
enough to know that you're on the right path. And I hate to see anyone spinning their wheels for years and years. So, it is like a startup mentality here. If something's not working, you got to change it, or you got to completely pivot, right, and do something different. And so I kind of looked at my career like that. When I was here early on, I knew I wanted to be in entertainment, but I had a bunch of different things I was pursuing simultaneously. Television hosting was the first one that grabbed. I started booking work right away. The small little auditions for things that didn't matter, but it didn't matter that those things didn't matter. For me, it was about the win. I was like, great, I'm actually able to book this job. So it shows me that I might be a bit more skilled or advanced in the hosting space than I am as an actress. Because as an actor, I was not booking work. It was just not happening for me. I wasn't even getting callbacks. So I was putting myself in acting classes while focusing primarily on the hosting work to start building a brand around that. And then once I'd built up a successful brand in hosting and was working quite a lot, then I felt like I had a bit more freedom I felt like I had a little bit more of a brand behind myself. So it was easier to get in more rooms as an actor. And at that point, I'd been in acting classes for 2-3 years. So I had improved enough to where when I was actually ready to really book bigger television jobs, I could, but I wasn't at first.
Yeah.
So if I had just been pursuing acting when I got to LA, I'm pretty sure that I would have quit after 2 years.
Yeah. So I kind of like that you're touching on this. And I think often we hear about multi-passionate people. I myself being one of them. I like to sing, I like to snowboard, I like to teach yoga, I do all these different things.
You're a multi-hyphenate.
Yeah. And you as well. And so often I hear people saying, like, how do I know which passion to choose, or which one to follow, or which one to do? And it seems like from what you're saying, it's kind of like you're throwing a lot of darts and you're seeing what catches.
Yep.
And is that how you've always, and is that how you still continue to kind of live and navigate which direction to go in?
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think it's the best direction. I have a lot of, I have so much respect for people who can have laser-like focus. I think that's probably the fastest way to get to where you're going, unless you're terrible at it. Because if you have laser-like focus, but you're just terrible, nothing's going to happen. But if you're good enough and you have that kind of precision with where you put your efforts, then no doubt about it, you'll probably get to where you're going faster than someone like myself who sprays and then iterates based on that. But it's worked for me because I do have, like you said, I have so many passions. So we're probably very similar in that way. I like to feel that I'm exploring a lot of different areas and that when things pop up, I can be flexible and fluid with what I take on.
Yeah.
And I just think for me, I was never destined to have one career. I knew I would be, and I mean, even within the 10 years that I've been here, I've done a lot of different things and moved in a lot of different directions, and in ways that probably weren't always good for quote unquote branding. But it's been fun. It's been really fun for me. And I've enjoyed wearing a lot of different hats, and I can look back and say that, oh, I tried this one thing and I didn't love it. So I don't feel any regrets about not going back to it again.
Yeah. Nice. At what point did you start to consider yourself an entrepreneur in the journey? Was it right away, or did it slowly start to evolve or resonate as a term for you?
Fairly quickly for me, because I recognized that I was pretty different from a lot of my friends out here who were also pursuing entertainment. Because I had a whole group of actors that I fell into, really lovely people, super talented. And I realized that, they were doing a lot of the things that you're told to do when you get out here. You go to acting classes, you do showcases, you submit your headshot to agencies, try to get noticed, and then you wait for your agent to call you about auditions, and then you try to nail the audition. And that was all fine and great, and I was doing those things too. But then I was doing like 30 other things. I was waking up at 6:30 in the morning and writing pilots and writing sketches for myself and producing videos on YouTube. And like at that time, that was just it was not even PC to do that. It was actually sort of seen as like, I don't know. It was looked down upon to be putting up content on YouTube. And I didn't understand how people could spend 4 to 8 weeks working on a showcase piece that is literally seen by 20 people in a room and then never seen again. I just didn't get that. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why not put something on the internet and then have the opportunity to have potentially millions of people see it? Doesn't that, it just logically, I was like, why not do everything that you can to get your talents out there? And so I was just attacking things from all kinds of angles. And I was lucky to have an agent early on who taught me about television packaging, how to sell a pilot, how to attach yourself to a project, pull in other assets that are valuable to a network or to a digital company, whatever it is, to get financing for your own project. And so that stuck with me. I think I sold a TV show 6 months after moving here because of him and because of his encouragement. It was to DirecTV. And we put together a pitch reel for the show. We did all these things that are very commonplace now, but I think 10 years ago were a little bit more, like you just didn't see that many entertainers taking control in that way. So yeah, I think from the beginning I felt like I was better at the entrepreneur part of it. What I needed to work on was actually the art.
Nice. Yeah. So looking at YouTube, I know it sounds like obviously you were there before it was even a thing in putting out this.
I made my first video in 2006. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, now it's a glorified, profession in a lot of ways because people, it's like
so insane to me.
The cat's out of the bag. Like you can make money and you can do this whole thing. And for those hearing this that are looking to get into YouTube, do you feel it's too saturated at this point? Like like what advice for someone that's considering that as a profession? Yeah.
I would never tell anyone to not try. And I think that there are certainly areas that might be underserved on YouTube. Like YouTube's not going away anytime soon. Neither is Facebook. So there's something to be said about utilizing platforms that have existing audiences and figuring out how to leverage those audiences to something that benefits you. But there's just so much content on YouTube that you run into 2 problems. One being discovery now is just incredibly tough. My first YouTube video I posted got, I think, almost 2 million views. I had no audience. And it got 2 million views because it was like fairly high production value for back then. And it was edgy. But there's no way that video would have gotten that kind of attention now. No way. And then I released a few videos subsequently to that back in like 2009, 2010, 2011, before I actually launched my channel, all of which got millions of views. I am lucky now to get a video that gets 100,000 views. So it's like the landscape has changed. It's really hard to get discovered. And then once you are in the system and you're banking on all kinds of factors like algorithms and watch time and frequency of upload, you become a little bit victim to this game that maybe at one point was really fun and a great creative outlet, but now is its own system reminiscent of my times with traditional media. Like there were all kinds of problems being a part of that system, and now there are a plethora of problems being a part of the YouTube system. So I certainly encourage people that love storytelling and want to be in media to look for the low-hanging fruit. Like try to find platforms that are still early in their growth, to build audiences in those platforms. You can always try and move those audiences to other places, but I just think that that's a smart way to do it. People that were early on Instagram, early on Snapchat, early on Vine, they all saw these, incredible growth rates. Now it's like Musically and Lively. And if you can be smart about where you build, then you can try to translate that. You can try to take that audience somewhere else.
Yeah, totally. So in order to make viral content or content that is effective in terms of like touching people, inspiring people, or better yet to say like shareable content, something that people watch and they're like, I got to share this right away. What do you think goes into that, and what kind of components or ingredients do those videos have, if you could try to generalize them?
Yeah. BuzzFeed nailed it. Now, the interesting thing is we're seeing companies like A+, Upworthy, Attention, Futurism. There are so many video networks now that have cracked this code, which is sort of applying formats to concepts so that people can use the video as a social identifier, right? Like a great example was there was one of the first videos that BuzzFeed did in their original video content strategy was something about like why redheads are actually more fun. And it was this, of course, fun montage of various scientific references mixed with pop culture references as to why redheads are more fun. And so you can imagine why this video went viral, because every redhead shared it on Facebook to say, this is how I feel about myself, or this is how I'd like to feel about myself. This is aspirational. And it serves as the perfect social identifier without people actually having to say, I'm a redhead and I'm more fun. And so a lot of these companies have cracked that. And the other piece would be the emotional piece, right? It's playing into something that some segment of the population emotionally identifies with. And any kind of social, if you take a social issue and tie it to a specific segment of the population, such as parenting among immigrants, for instance, or, marriage among redheads. I don't know. If you kind of take a social issue and you combine it with a segment of the population, someone that you're hoping to speak to, then those are very powerful. That's a very powerful thing. You're telling your audience, like, you're basically saying, like, you need to watch this because you are part of this member of the population, and rather than, yeah, I think that's pretty. Those are the two main things that I've seen. Yeah. But then, aside from that, there's formatting content in a way that's like digestible and fun. We've seen the unboxing videos on YouTube do so well, which is crazy. Like kids taking apart toys and showing I think there's a series called What's Inside, where the kid takes apart a toy and shows you what's inside. Nice. You get it right away. It's just like, of course, yeah. Why wouldn't you want to see what's inside a Lego? I'm sure it's more Lego, but that's fine. So I think like figuring out fun formats where people get right away what it is that you're trying to do, and then you just have to stick with it. You stick with it and you stick with it and you stick with it until you build something.
Yeah. So to what degree is this a factor in your awareness when you're producing your own content, whether it's through your videos or just other ways that you release content? Are you holding both in terms of like the creative and the entrepreneur and all of this stuff, or how is that for you?
Am I like, which one do I identify with more, or do you mean just?
Yeah, like just kind of like if we were to like crawl into Taryn's brain as you're, producing content, like how would it go in there?
Terrifying for everyone involved, including myself. Yeah. So I think I've often been my biggest barrier towards whatever you want to define success is. I have found it very difficult to make a living specifically off of YouTube AdSense. And I would say most YouTubers would agree with that. Unless you have millions of subscribers and you're getting millions of views, you don't really make much money, if at all, on the AdSense that's running alongside the videos. And so as a result, you take a lot of brand deals, which can be difficult if you don't have a format that's brand friendly. As in my case, when I started out with these raunchy musical comedy videos, like not exactly things that brands feel comfortable touching, especially in the early days of YouTube. And so the only other way to make money is to leverage that into other work, consulting, I've done a ton of production work for other brands where I'm in front of the camera and I'm writing and producing. So I'm still doing what I love best. It's doing what I love most. It's just not going up on my channel. It's going up for these other brands. And then I'm providing, some level of promotional services from my channel. So that's like a lot of how I've made money. And as a result of that, I probably haven't been as focused in the areas that I was just talking about as other YouTubers have. So I haven't been great at nailing down a format, a format that's brand friendly, and B, a format that I love to do week in and week out without getting bored. So I've done a lot of different things, which means my audience is also not super specific. Like they're probably more broad than most YouTubers' audiences. I'm not just like a gamer or a makeup guru or a singer. And so I give all this advice because I think it's really good advice, but I don't take it. But my core business looks so different from other YouTubers that it's worked out fine for me. But I just, if you look inside my brain, I think it's just like, it's a chaotic mess of like, what am I inspired to do this week? What should I do if I want to go into a growth stage with like building out the brand? What do I need to do to like maintain some base level of a core audience, or, make sure that my videos are well liked by the people that have already subscribed? And what do I really not feel like doing this week? It's just all a mess. So I fight myself every step of the way. I really do. I fight myself a lot, but ultimately I feel like I've had so much fun doing a lot of different things. So I've been fine not taking my own advice, but it's not, I wouldn't recommend anyone else do that.
I actually really appreciate you sharing it. And I say that because I think a lot of people hearing this can resonate with that. And I think that maybe that is, even as chaotic and crazy as it sounds or is, it totally works for you. Like here you are, making a living, doing what you love. And yes, it can be challenging and confronting, but it's working to some degree at least. And so I find myself very similar, where I get these ideas where like I wake up from a dream and I'm like, let's host an event in Bali, and then like go rampant on that. And then it's like, actually I'm bored, let's go do this. And then it's like, I'm bored at Christmas, let's host an online summit like this, which came together in 3 weeks. That's amazing. So I'd be curious if you were to lay out your business, and you don't have to go into crazy specifics, but just to kind of give a picture of like all the things you have your hands in. I think might give permission to some people hearing this that it is actually okay to not be in this like one focused linear track. So I would love to hear.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'll give you the honest answer, which is that I'm in a stage right now where I'm doing a complete overhaul of everything that I've put out online. I guess you could call it a rebrand of sorts. While I've certainly never stuck to any one thing with a lot of my content, most of it falls in the category of comedy, sketch comedy, musical comedy, some serious stuff thrown in there every once in a while, and then some of my life. But it's not really been cohesive. And now I want to move in a more serious direction, not because I like being serious, but because I'm naturally just more interested in other areas, like science, technology, psychology, neuroscience. And I want to be able to figure out how to take those ideas and make them digestible to a new audience. And so I've been working on that for the past 9 months, figuring out how to redo everything that I've been doing, while also not completely losing everyone and while also not losing my mind. So I've had certain, even corporate clients that I've had to maintain, work with that may not fit this new shift in content. And so it's been it's been very tough for me to figure out how to do this, because my identity is stuck in one world, but I'm trying to move into another. And so for me, like right now, I've got my hands in a feature-length documentary on neurotech with a well-known director, but I can't say who it is yet, but I'm very excited about that. We'll be working on that for the next year, and I'm a producer on that project. I'm working on getting a podcast together. I've done 2 episodes called But Seriously Though, where I sit down with scientists, entrepreneurs, psychologists, anyone who is doing really interesting work and figuring out how to make this stuff that I find fascinating helpful to the everyday person. And then I'm also working on a bunch of VR initiatives where I create these sort of experiential projects that take people into another world or into the shoes of someone who they've never met before, to give them a different perspective. So all of that being very different from my past work. Meanwhile, I still have a few branded clients that I'm making video pieces for that are comedy, because that's what I was doing before. And finishing up some of those contracts. I have a deal as a writer for a musical comedy movie with a company that was like, a year and a half ago that I pitched, but it's moving forward. So I'm continuing to work on that. So I still have my hands in a lot of pots, but I'm basically not doing anything new that fits that old brand, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. Well,
sorry, that was a very long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, I appreciate getting all the details. And I think those listening as well appreciate it. And I'm curious, like the word confronting comes to mind when I imagine like who you were before, and like all the clients and the subscribers and the fans, and then VR, podcasting, neurotech. It's like, it's different. And for those hearing this, like I think there's value in going through these evolutions. And I myself have gone through several evolutions, and they are confronting, but important, like integral. And it's like, yes, it's easy to stay stuck. Things are kind of working pretty good, but they're not working in terms of like my life is on freaking fire. Like every day I wake up and I feel freaking awesome kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And at what point did you know that it was time? And then how did you go like all in and actually like, all right, being a yes to taking action to make it happen?
I appreciate that you said all that, because that's how every evolution of my career has been. Even going and starting my YouTube channel and quitting traditional media acting, that was a conscious decision that took me about a year, from like realizing that something wasn't working, that I wasn't happy working in TV and film, to actually really starting the YouTube channel. I'd say it was a full year, and a lot of planning and a lot of writing out what I was going to do, but then being too afraid to just do it. Mm-hmm. And then I'd say it's been about the same with this process. I'd say about a year. I started knowing maybe 2 years ago that I wanted to shift my YouTube content, but I just couldn't figure out how to do it. And I was still in a growth stage with my channel, and it was just too scary to try and figure it out. So once I reached about a year ago, once I reached a plateau and my channel was no longer growing with what I was doing, I realized this is definitely the time. Because when you're in Casey Neistat, who's a huge YouTuber, and his channel's just been accelerating in growth at a massive rate for the past 2 years. He put a video out about this maybe a month or 2 months ago, where he said he's going to stop doing what he's doing, which is the daily vlogs, and that's really hard to do when you're adding like 100,000 people a week. It's really hard to do that, but he was going to do it, and I think that's really brave. For me, it was a lot easier, because I actually saw the numbers, like that things were no longer working for me, and it just validated my desire to do something else. So I'd say a year ago, I started making changes, small little changes just here and there, testing out the waters with new ideas and concepts. And now here I am. I feel like I'm fully like all in to this new thing.
Yeah, nice.
It takes time. Sometimes it's not as easy as just switching. Sometimes you have to put things out, figure out how something resonates, get your messaging down. I'm still figuring out that part. Like, what do I want to say to the world? how do I care to articulate what I care about?
Yeah, totally. It reminds me a lot of like people that are in entrepreneurship, like how you were when you were still in the job or in the other phase with TV, where it's like, I want to do this thing, but I can't quite go all in yet. And it's super hard and it's really confronting. And I'm wondering, yeah. So how have you been able to get support through this process? Because I think, I don't know, at least I found in my own life when I've had support, and that could come through people or it could come through independent practices. I think there's a lot of ways to get support. But what have you done to kind of feel like you're taking care of yourself and to feel like empowered, I guess, in moving forward when it's really, really hard day in and day out?
One big thing that I have done, both in moving out of traditional media and now in moving out of the YouTube world, has been to make a conscious decision to this just sounds so dark, but extricate myself to some degree from the communities that I've been a part of, because I've found that when you're drinking the Kool-Aid from everyone and you're in a system that is basically, it's providing you with constant validation that you're doing the right thing, you're getting all the pats in the back that you need, it's very hard to get out. Mm-hmm. And then if you stay, sometimes you end up feeling really bad about yourself because you're doing something different and you're doing something that isn't validated within that community, because that community cares about something different. And so when I was leaving traditional media, I wasn't going to all of the cocktail parties and events that I used to go to in the film and television world. I was just like, I can't, because it's not going to be validating for me in ways that I need while I'm trying out this new thing. But B, sometimes it's going to make me feel bad about myself, because I might get a little bit of FOMO, like, oh, was I sure I really wanted to leave this community? So it doesn't mean that I get rid of my friends that are in those spaces, but I just sort of shift into a new space by getting involved in new communities around what I care about. So like right now I'm in the Women in VR community, and I love it. And I met all these amazing women and people I never knew. And it's fun to be a part of that and have this like new system of validation around something that I'm now excited and passionate about. If I wasn't a part of that, it would be really hard. So I think building a new community and then just sort of making conscious decisions around etching out of old communities. And then I think another thing would be, I lost it. I had it and then I lost it.
Yeah, support communities.
Yeah, I mean, and then obviously just having the obvious one is just having a good group of friends around you that are points of optimism, not cynicism. I always like critical feedback though. I really appreciate honest feedback. But I do think there's a fine line between honest feedback and someone who's just going to always be pulling you down, and that's never helpful.
Yeah, totally. So I want to shift a little bit to talk about VR, which every time I hear you say VR, you seem lit up about it. And so I'm like, VR. So what are you noticing about VR, and what opportunity do you think? Because the way I guess I perceive you is like a woman who sees trends and is able to kind of move into spaces before they become big. And VR feels like a similar thing. Where we've heard a little bit about VR, we're kind of knowing about it, but it's still fairly foreign and new. And so what has you excited about VR, and what do you think is possible?
So VR is so fascinating to me for a number of different reasons. One, being 2 years ago, I put on my first headset. And when I say headset, I mean the HTC Vive. So there's really two good headsets, the Vive and Oculus. And if you've tried anything else, then you haven't tried VR. Not real VR. And the experience to me was so real and so jolting that at that time, I was like in a really, really depressed state. I'd just gone through a really terrible breakup and was just in it. And I thought, I couldn't even meditate without crying. It was like impossible to get away from my own thoughts. And this was the first time in months where I was transported to somewhere else. And what I recognized was not that, I obviously was like, wow, this is really entertaining. But what I found more intriguing was the fact that it completely shifted my mood and my state. And television and films don't even, they can do that, but not to this degree. And the immersion was just so incredible. It was immediate. And so I just started doing research, and I realized that a lot of the top neuroscience departments at universities were using virtual reality in their various psychology studies, because it was almost like a quick hack to creating immediate immersive states. And so they could see all kinds of interesting things happening in the brain, almost like you would on a psychedelic. And which I studied in college, oddly enough, in my major. I studied psychotropes. And so I saw this interesting intersection between all the things that I've always loved and cared about, which was entertainment, technology, and psychology. And I just thought, I don't know how to get involved, but I want to be involved. So I just started going to VR events. I had no idea like what that would mean. I started making 360 video content. It's not even great, but it doesn't matter. It's about dipping in and just doing it, and learning about Unity, which is the game engine where you can make pretty much anything for a Vive or an Oculus, and just being a general advocate and enthusiast in the space so that I could learn and figure out what my place in it is. And now this feature-length documentary I'm working on, it will involve VR to some degree and some of the things that I'm talking about. But what I'm excited about is just seeing like how this medium transforms the way we learn, transforms the way we live, transforms the way we love and empathize with other people because of its immersive state. It's the only medium where you cannot be distracted by this.
Yeah, totally.
So you're kind of forced into a story, and by the way, there can be huge consequences to that too that are not desirable. But I think I'll stand on the positive impact side for now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and turn it into some dark comedy of some kind. Exactly. Just kidding. Okay, last question for you before we go into the rapid fire round. So this summer, as we said earlier, it's all about living your life on fire. A life where you wake up every day feeling in alignment, you feel fulfilled, you feel on purpose. And so for those hearing this that want that, what might you recommend or say? What piece of advice do you have?
I definitely would recognize that to live a life that's aligned and feels purposeful and exciting every day, you can't expect to wake up every morning and feel that. Like, it's going to be hard. But I was actually just reading this book. I have it over my coffee table, but I'm too busy to grab it. That the hardest things in life, we as humans, we love to tell stories and narratives to ourselves to make ourselves feel better, because life is just hard and life sucks, and that's just the truth. And sometimes the hardest things, when there's purpose behind it, are the most gratifying and most fulfilling later on. And so I just encourage people to not get down from the dips, because the dips are absolutely necessary part of it. It's hard going and doing something that no one else is doing. It's hard being on your own and trying to make something work when there's not a manual or a playbook or a 401k plan attached to it. And so, I've certainly had a ton of ups and downs, but I can't imagine doing anything else. And that's my recommendation, is like, go after the thing that even with the heartaches and the negatives that you're still willing to wake up every morning to do. Because in the long run, like, you will see success and you will have more happy days than unhappy days. But I think there's risk in wanting to wake up every morning and saying, is what I'm doing making me happy? Because if you are constantly saying that every single morning, inevitably you're going to go through like a shitty 4-week period where like you're not so happy. And if that's your barometer, you might quit. And then you'd be really unhappy, because then you're going and doing something that doesn't get you excited or challenged. So I think the question is, can I see myself doing anything else? Is the pain worth the gain? And that's what I think brings ultimate fulfillment.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what was the name of that book that you're reading?
Okay, I'm gonna lean over because I was like, oh, here we go. Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Nice. He talks about how we tend to glorify the things that are the most painful as the most fulfilling things in our life, because we have to. Like, no one likes to live through a painful experience without creating something meaningful out of it. But I do think if you're in a job that's unfulfilling and unsatisfying and is something you'd rather not be doing, that pain, that's like the most unsatisfying pain, because the whole time you're just regretting it and wishing that you could do something else. So
yeah. So good. Okay, rapid fire round, series of random questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, question number 1, fill in the blank. If you really knew me, you would know what?
That I like to pick at my face a lot.
Nice.
Nervous tick.
Okay, next question.
Chew my lips.
That's awesome. All right, next question. What is a habit or a practice that you do daily that you feel sets you up for success?
10 minutes of meditation in the morning.
Nice. Next question. If you could turn back the time and give a piece of advice to your 18-year-old self, what would you say to her?
Be even more bold. The risks that you face are just only become greater over time, and you have nothing to lose.
Nice. Next question. This is for everyone that wants to know everything about social media. What is one nugget that you wish you could implant to every question, every person that's like, Taryn, what about this? Taryn, what about that? If there's one thing that you could say to people in the realm of social media, what might you say?
Just Google it.
Nice. It's awesome. That's so good. Okay, and last question. What does living an unconventional life mean to you?
Living an unconventional life to me means freedom in all areas. Freedom of expression, freedom of opportunity, freedom of choice, freedom of hours, freedom of location even. That may not be what other people seek out when they're looking to live an unconventional life, but those are the things that matter most to me.
Amazing. Taryn Southern, everyone. Taryn, tell us about the giveaway that you have for one of our listeners.
I will give away a signed copy of my last album, and it will probably be my last ever album because I'm not really doing music anymore. So Flashback Friday, it's a series of covers of my favorite 1980s songs. So it's fun. And I've got the album on a cassette tape with a USB output, which is
that's awesome. Keeping it old
for all of the young millennials who've never seen a cassette tape. This is like a real steal.
I love how it's like 80s covers too, and you put it on the cassette. It's great. It's amazing. So all the details will be below on this page. You can also head over to unconventionallifeshow.com. And Taryn, for those that want to follow you on your journey, check you out on YouTube, or just get to know you more, where should they go?
You know what? I'm going to, just for the sake of it, I'm going to mix it up and I'm going to tell them to go to Facebook. Facebook.com/Taryn Southern.
Awesome.
I'm doing more over there now. So
there you have it, everyone. Awesome. Well, Taryn, thank you so much for joining us on today's segment of the Unconventional Life Summit. And Unconventional Life family, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll have another segment coming at you shortly.
Thanks, Jules.
Bye.